Hello my dear students. In the previous video we have completed the list chapter, and this video will go through the two practice projects that has been given at the end of your chapter. So let's see first what is the definition or the problem definition of the practice projects here. So first being named as a comma code. So what has been said here is say you have a list value like this. So they have already given you the list consisting of the elements as apples, bananas, tofu and cats. So for this, what you need to do is you need to write a function that takes a list value as an argument and returns a string with all the items separated by comma and a space with and inserted before the last item. For example, so when you pass this list, it has to return only single string consisting the elements of this string as apples, comma bananas, comma tofu, and at the last it has to cover end with the and the last element. But your function should be able to work with the any list value passed to it. So it's like that the function should not, you need to write a user defined function where it has to work with the all the kinds of the list provided to it. Okay, so let's see the solution here. So what can be done for doing that? I hope you understood the problem definition here. It's very simple that when you give any list as an parameter, or you pass in any list as an input to the function, it has to return the string consisting the all elements of the list separated by the comma, but the last element has to end with the preceded with the and word there. So let's see here what can be the solution. Before I discuss the complete solution or the what the logic has been used here, I just want to show you the what kind of result you will get for that. If you have not understood the definition properly, if I tell you what is the input and what output is expected, at least the 50% of the problem definition will be clear to you, so that you will understand the logic that has used to get that solution. So here in this program you can see here a list has been taken where the contents is the same what has been given in your question. So we are passing this list to the function. The name of the user defined function is list to string. To this function we are passing this as a parameter, but in turn what you expect the output is, I'll show you the first output. So in turn you will accept the, or you will expect the output as all the contents of the list. You can see here, you can see the list here. So this is the list elements. The same elements has to be displayed as the string but separated by the comma, and the last value needs to end with the and here. So let's see what can be done in order to get this solution here. So user defined function has been taken with the name as a list to string which accepts the list as a parameter. So make sure that you pass the list itself as a parameter to this function, and a for loop has been taken to traverse across the each element of the list. So for I in the range, the length of the sum list. So here you are giving a range for how many iterations the for loop has to execute. So if you restrict it to the all the elements, make sure that you get the length of that list so that it traverses across the all the elements. So in this case, the length of the list is length in the sense it will give you the total number of the elements here. So in this example, how many elements are there in the list? 1, 2, 3 and 4. So here the value for this range function will be 4, and range in the sense it is going to work from the 0 to 3, not the 4 number. So I hope you remember the how does the range function behaves here. So in this example, it is going to work for the I from ranging from 0 to 3. Why? Because length of the sum list is 4. So for the first iteration, the I value is 0, for which it is going to work on this first content, that is the 0th index value element is apples. So we have taken the new variable here as a new string where we want to convert this element to the string here. So for that iteration, it is going to point to the first element. So here also the I value will be 0, and we are accessing this element. We don't know the what kind of elements has been stored in the list. It may be even integer or the floating point. So just to make sure that the element needs to be converted back to the string so that we can display the result in the string format, we are doing the type conversion here to convert the each and every element to the string here. This is going to convert the each element to the string. So once it has been done, next we are checking the condition whether it is the last element here. So how to identify which is the last element? So it is very easy that already you know the how to find out the length of a list. So always the last element, the index value for the last element is going to be the one value less to the length of that list here. So in this case, you can see here we are initializing or we are checking whether that particular iteration where it is working, whether it is pointing to the last element of the list or not. So in this case, you can see here how to check against the last element is length of that list minus 1, which gives the index value for the last, and you are checking whether that iteration is pointing to the last element or not. If it is not the last element, directly what it is going to do, it is going to go for the else part where it is displaying the new string. So the element which you have extracted at the each iteration, that will be displayed, comma, end is equal to, in the sense here the end parameter needs to be used in the print function, where you are telling that how that string has to be continued with the next or the further values over there. So it has to continue with the comma over here. So whatever the parameter that you are going to take for the end function, that parameter will be put before taking to the next value. So let's see for this example itself. For the first iteration, I value is 0. So I value in the 0 means some list of 0. Some list of 0 is the apples. So this apples will be converted to the string and will be stored in a variable new string here. So next what you are doing here, you are checking whether the I is equal to length of the list minus 1. So the length of list minus 1, the value is 3, which is going to point to the last index value of this list here. But for the first iteration, I value is 0. So 0 is not equal to 3. So it is going to the else part where it is going to display the new string and followed by a comma. So and next it will go for the next iteration of the for loop where the I is going to point to the 1, and here it becomes some list of 1, the list of 1 in the sense bananas. So it will convert this bananas to the string and will be stored in the variable new string. So again it will check whether it is pointing to the last element of the list, whether now I is 2 but the last element is the index value for the last element for this list is 3. So 1 is not equal to 3. So that means it will go for the else part, and the next value, that is bananas, will be displayed. Again it is followed by a comma here. So this is going to continue for the first 3 elements. So let's see what happens when it comes to the last element. When the for loop or the I value comes to the 3, so it will convert this cats to the string, which will be stored again in the new string. Now here it will check whether I is equal to 3. Of course, for the last element, I value is equal to 3, then it will execute this part. So what it has to do is, first it has to print and here the concatenation has been done. So if you remember, I already told you that what happens if you are going to use the plus operator between the two strings. If you use the plus operator between the two strings, it is going to just join those two strings. For the last part, you are going to just do the concatenation with the AND plus string of that some list of I, that is the last element here. So after that it is going to end this function, and this is going to be displayed with the required format what has been asked in your question. So you can see here all the elements of the list has been displayed as a string, and each element has been separated by the comma except the last, which is preceded with the AND word here. I hope the solution is clear to you. It's very simple. If you understand the list properly and if you understand how the elements of the list can be accessed, it is quite very simple over here. So just make sure that you are able to get the total elements of the list, and you will be able to access the elements, and you can just do the concatenation every time over there. Okay. So I hope this solution is clear to you. So let's see the next practice project here. So the next practice project is titled as a character picture grid. So in which this grid has been given, which is nothing but a list here. So do not worry about these things. I'll just tell you this grid is a list variable consisting of the list as an elements itself. For example, the first element of this list is another list where it contains the individual string character here. The individual character is nothing but a dot, or the you can say the full stop here. So in the next element, or the Next element of this list is again another list where it contains again the elements of the list as a dot, o and so on. So like this, how many elements are there in the list grid is, so you have the one element, two element, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So totally there are the 9 elements to the list grid. But again each of these 9 elements have the elements within it. Why? Because this is also a list. So within this inner list, how many elements are there in common? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So each list within this list contains the 6 elements here. So in order to just justify you what this is, so it is a list within the list. So it is said to be as a nested list where the elements of this list are the list itself, and each list again contains the 6 elements in it. So to this, what you are supposed to do is here you need to write a program, so where it has to display or it has to make the display of the elements of that grid into in this way. So they have asked you to access the elements of that nested list, and you should be able to display the elements in this pattern over here. So for that, what has been given, you can see here. So you can think of a grid XY. So when I say the nested lists, always it is comfortable that you will be able to access the every individual element in a two-dimensional format. This is exactly the way how you do it with a two-dimensional array. In this case also you are going to follow the same. So you can think of a grid XY as being the character at the X and Y coordinates of a picture drawn with text characters. So the 00 origin will be the upper left corner. They are just giving you the hint that this part, the first character is 0 with 0. So the first 0 or else this X will tell you that this is going to identify the each inner list here. So the row wise entry will be identified by the X, where Y is going to point to the every individual element within that list here. So for example, 0 to 0 means 0 in the sense the first list element, and again 0 means within that the first element over there. So for example, if I take it as a 2 0, so 2 in the sense the first list is this one, the second list is this, within this 0th element is this dot here, and so on. So what you are supposed to do is, using this list, it is left to you that what logic you want to use where you'll be able to get this display as a result. Now let's see what solution can be used here. So for getting that solution, first you need to define, or you need to take the same list values, which is to be named as a grid here. So before I tell you what logic has been used here, so let me run this program and show you the result. So you can see here. So you can see here, this list elements has to be just extracted, and where it has to display in this pattern. So can you just tell me in what pattern this has been displayed here? So you can see here the row wise entry is, in the first row you have all the dots, in the second row you have the dot followed by the 0 0 dot dot dot, right? So if you observe it clearly, you can easily sense that in what pattern it has extracted. So if you see this first column, so are you able to see the all the first elements from the each of the list contents here? So dot dot 00 dot 00 dot dot. So I think you can make sense here that the column, the first element of the column, so rather you can say column or the first elements of the all the list has been extracted and displayed as the first row elements here. So this has been, the vertical display of this has been converted into the horizontal display, the first horizontal display here. So meanwhile it has been followed here as the same, the second column element, that is dot followed by the rest of the zeros and the dot. So that has been taken as a row entry here. So this is continued the same way. So you clearly observe that you should write a program where it has to access all these first elements and make that display here. Next, the second column elements, which has to be displayed as a second row here, and third column elements needs to be displayed as the third row elements. So let's see what has been done here in this program. So once we have defined that grid that has been given in the question, So it is obvious that if you want to work on the matrix format of the elements, you're always it is a convenient way, or rather you can say the efficient way to extract the elements is to be with the nested for loop. So in this case, you can see here the outer for loop has been taken with the range 6 and the inner for loop has been taken with the range 9. So why? Because you just think over here that as I told you, the pattern that has been taken, the pattern that has to be displayed with respect to this example is that these things has to be taken as the first row. So that's why the inner for loop has been taken with the range as a 9. For example, you can count, if you want, you can count here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So if you want this to be displayed horizontally now, so though it has been vertically taken in your initialization, you want to extract it and display it as a row wise. So that's the reason the inner loop has been taken with the range 5. So similarly, why this has been taken with the range 6 is these things. So these things you want to make it to appear as a vertically. So where if you count, you will get it as a 6 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So probably now it is clear that why the 6 and 9 has been taken here. So for I in the range 6, if I say it is a range 6, it is going to work for the iterations 0 to 5. And if I say it is a range 9, the iterations are going to work from the 0 to 8 here. So in the next case, we'll see how you are going to display the required output here. So for the first iteration of the outer for loop here, the I value is 0 and it will enter to the inner for loop, and for the first iteration of the inner for loop, A value is 0. So here you are checking whether the A is less than 8. So that means if it is less than 8, then only it is going to display the result. Why? Because right, so if it is less than 8, it is going to display. So for the first iteration, A value is 0, it is less than 8. Here the main logic lies here. So you can see here, while printing, the grid of I and A has been not considered. Instead, grid of A to the I has been taken here. So A being now 0, even I being 0, so grid of 0, 0 is this element here. So this element will be taken to for displaying. So one more thing you will have to concentrate here is in display you need to take the end parameter without any value. Yes, end parameter without any values here. That means it has to continue without leaving the any space or without taking it to the next line. So in the next iteration, it will not go for the outer for loop. Why? Because it has to complete all the iterations of the inner for loop itself. So for the next iteration, the A value becomes 1 and 1 is still less than 8. So you can see here what will be printed here. Grid of 1 to 0. So grid of 1, 0. So grid of 1, 0 in the sense 0 is this list element. So 1 to 0 in the sense the 1 is this list element, and within this the 0th element is this one. So this is going to be extracted and that will be displayed without leaving any space over there. So let me show you the simultaneous output here. So you can see here, so two dots has been extracted, two dots has been left without any space here. So then for the next iteration, A value becomes now 2 and 2 is still less than 8 here, and 2 is less than 8, and here what will be displayed? Grid of 2, 0. So 2 in the sense this list element, within this 2 to the 0 in the sense this particular element will be taken. So you can see O has been taken here. So in the next iteration, A value becomes 3, 3 is still less than 8, grid of 3, 0 is taken. So you can see here, for the first iteration of the outer for loop, it is going to take all the elements with the 0th position with the column. So that's the reason why the first A has been taken to point out to the first element of all the list here. Right. So once A becomes a 7, so 7 in the sense 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can see at the 7th it is going to point here. Right. So still it is less than 7 and this value is going to be printed. So in the next case, once the A becomes 8, so it will come here. So it will check out whether the A is less than 8. No, then it is going to for the else part. So in the else part, what they have taken, they have simply taken the grid of A of I. So why this is again the same part is going to be displayed. So one thing, if you observe here, all the elements of the first list element and all the elements of the last list element are going to remain same. So no matter what you take at the else part here. Okay. So once this all the iterations of the inner for loop has been completed, it is going for the second iteration of the outer for loop, in which it becomes I value becomes 1. So I value 1 in the sense this part, right? So for A in the range 0, again it is going to start from the 1 to 0. 1 in the sense 0, 1. This element will be taken and it is going to continue as I explained for the previous iterations. So I hope the solution is clear to you. If you want in the detailed manner that how the output is going to be displayed, go and sit and traverse across the each iteration. You'll get to know why this 6 has been taken, why this 9, and why the street of A and I has been taken for the display. Okay. So if at all the solution is not clear to you people, then let me know. I'll just explain it once again in the interaction class. Thank you. With this, the entire list chapter has been completed. So in the next videos, we'll continue with the next chapter. So before that, I just want all of you to go through this list tuples completely. Solve more and more examples. Though I'll give you the few examples for the practicing. You to search for the few examples from the internet and practice them so that you become perfect with the strings, tuples, and the list. Thank you.